Hi, my name is Boone Zavik. I'm here with the Immuno Labs Podcast. Today's episode is probably one of my most favorite topics, inflammation. But first, please just take a moment, subscribe, hit the like button, drop a comment just saying, hey, I'm here. I can't wait to learn about inflammation. Anything like that, it helps me so much. So I've got a couple notes I want to make sure to go through. But yes, today we're talking about how inflammation is silently aging you and what you can do about it. One of the things is easier than you think, and it can definitely help a lot. But first, I want to begin by defining the two different types of inflammation, because I don't want there to be confusion. Not all inflammation is bad inflammation. Some inflammation you should make sure that you are predictively doing regularly, right? That type of inflammation are things like exercise, sauna, I don't know if cold plunge is exactly inflammatory, but it's, a stressor, right? So that type of inflammation is good, right? How do you build muscle? You got to kind of break the muscle down. You got to inflame that area so your body knows to build more, make it stronger, right? Teach your body you need that. So it's not that all inflammation is bad. Some is good. And the type that we can control, that's usually the better inflammation, meaning the exercise, because you're controlling, the working out, the heat exposure, because you're controlling being out there. Of course, you don't want to do some death march in the Sahara Desert, right? Like that's not good. that pushes to the bad side of inflammation. So, that's where, these things can help a lot. And acute inflammation, that's what helps you with recovery and growth, right? So good inflammation, we get that. Now, bad inflammation, right? A lot of these are ones that people have some kind of familiarity with. So, for example, the most basic type of bad inflammation is an infection, right? Your body's getting inflamed. It's responding to this foreign antibody. Your body's fighting against it. It's like you're waging a little war in this, dirty cut that you have, right? Or if I get, as I did the other night, if I get bit by a mosquito, my body's inflamed, it's attacking it, it's, doing what it needs to do to keep me alive, right? That's basically what your body wants to do, is just keep you in homeostasis, keep you going, no matter what, just it wants you to keep, pushing forward. That's survival. It's great. But now there's another, type of bad inflammation that is harder to control or know without, some proper testing. So one of those biggest areas is going to be, the dietary triggers, right? So are you eating certain foods, certain processed foods, seed oils, sugars, or hidden food sensitivities, right? This is causing an IgG, as immunoglobulin G, and immunological reaction, right? You're eating this food, your body is seeing this as a foreign invader, it's attacking it, it's using, I would say it's unnecessary inflammation, because if you simply did not eat the food, your body would not be inflamed. You'd have better recovery, you'd be feeling better performance, but you don't know, right? And you're eating this inflammatory food and you're not feeling as good. How can you start determining if you have some type of, food inflammation after meals? How do you feel? Do you feel good? Or are there certain chronic issues that keep coming up, right? Do you have breakfast and then maybe around lunchtime, do you have a headache? Do you have, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, some other meal, and maybe hours later, or maybe even a day later, do you have this kind of recurring issue coming up? Digestive issues, headaches, migraines, joint pain, fatigue. Do you go to bed, at a reasonable time? Like, let's say you're nuts, right? Let's say you go to bed at 9 p.m. and you wake up at 8 a.m., right? That sounds really nice, okay? But let's say you do that. When you wake up, do you feel exhausted? Right? Does your body not performing really well? Because that would be kind of crazy, right? I mean, that's so much sleep. I'm envious even describing it. But if you were having, regular sleep like that, but you don't wake up feeling rested and you're not feeling good, I mean, there could be all kinds of issues. But for me, the first thing I look at is food, because that to me is the easiest thing to adjust. So that's the form of bad inflammation. Other things I mentioned, infections. So we have viral, bacteria. That's bad. We have mental and emotional stress, right? So if you're always freaking out, or just, running yourself kind of ragged, listen, I'll be the first to say I definitely do a lot of that, right? I just, I got a lot going on there. And, so that can cause cortisol dysregulation, right? So that's also a type of bad inflammation, because it's not good for you. It's not improving your health versus, the exercise, heat shock, heat exposure. That's good inflammation. It helps you become better and stronger, right? This type, not so much. Also, there's environmental toxins, pollution. Do you live by a super busy street, right? That's not great. Or are you, walking at some crazy, super busy intersection where some bus, fume is hitting you every single day? That's bad inflammation. Do the best that you can to, get away from that. Smoking, alcohol, various chemicals. I recently heard a story of an individual that had a landscaping business. He had all kinds of cancer from the chemicals he's using. That's, horrible, right? Like that's not what you want. So, what can you start avoiding of that bad inflammation, right? And how does the bad inflammation accelerates aging? Well, you have this power cell in your body, right? It's called your mitochondria. If you start damaging it, that starts to decline your energy. I guess think of it like if you have a hose, right? And you're pumping water through that hose. Well, if you start to kink that hose, what happens? The water flow reduces, right? You want the water to just keep pumping as fast as it can. Although that's not exactly how your mitochondria works, just bear with me here, right? If your power cell, your mitochondria, your power plant is working really well, it's fueled well, it's just pumping out energy for you, that is great, right? You start having these various, stressors, inflammation, it can damage the mitochondria, it can reduce your energy. Also, it can break down collagen, right? The smoking, all these things, the free radicals, it just, melts your face away, right? It's not good. So that's where you have people using Botox or fillers to try to, pump their face back up to look as though they're youthful. The best thing to do, just be youthful, right? Just do the right things. Don't smoke. Don't, have alcohol. Limit, these bad inflammatories as much as possible, especially the food. It can also disrupt your hormones. Now you get fatigue and weight gain. So all of these forms of bad inflammation just take a toll, not only on your longevity, not only on your aesthetics, but I would say the most important thing is just day to day how you feel, right? Like no one wants to wake up, not feel good and just dredge through the day feeling like crap, right? That's not the goal of life, right? So you want to figure out what those inflammatory things are for you and start reducing as much as possible. So how can we start detecting some of these hidden, inflammatory things? Of course, being hidden, it's tough, right? The best way to find out a lot of this is just look at, all right, what are my daily habits, right? And of these, which ones are inflammatory? I've probably, hit this in so many different videos, but alcohol, smoking, recreational drugs, vast majority of that, not going to be good, right? Not going to be beneficial. It's going to be triggering more inflammation and detriment than any, positive it's creating. And any positive you think it's creating, like you're having a cocktail to alleviate stress, you're kind of just delaying where that stress is showing up and really just kind of like igniting it to, show up more later. So ideally, make those improvements. You can look for the big signs, like, well, I guess this one's not exactly big, but when I got bit by the mosquito, it swells, right? So if you have an area that's starting to swell up or you're having issues in, there's potentially some kind of, greater inflammation going on that you want to look at with the physician. But there can also be subtle signs. So, fatigue, digestive issues, headaches, brain fog, or having a hard time, getting your words, skin flare-ups, like maybe you've, like some eczema hives or whatnot going on. Those can all be factors to say, hey, there's some kind of like ongoing inflammation that needs to be resolved. And it's not the good kind of inflammation. Testing that can help with this, C-reactive protein, especially the high sensitivity, which is referred to as hs-CRP, which means high sensitivity C-reactive protein. That's a great test you can do with your physician. Homocysteine, blood sugar and insulin testing. And I would say the best one, which, granted I'm biased because I'm here at Immuno Laboratories, but the best one's going to be food sensitivity testing because that will be the easiest one to make a change on, right? If your regular commute puts you on the highway, it puts you walking by a busy street, good luck trying to convince everyone to, stop driving or, getting some electric car so you don't have, some gas fumes in your face, right? You're not going to have much control over that. But every single meal, you do have control over that. You're choosing what you're going to order. You're choosing what groceries you're going to get. You're physically having to put that item in your mouth, right? That's why I'm a huge proponent of this type of testing because you can take any diet you want out there, but make it work for you. Make sure that that diet and the protocols you're going to follow are not going to be inflammatory to you. It's really that simple. blood test, 48, 72 hours, you get the results. You can now avoid all of your inflammatory foods. So what are some other daily habits that can help lower inflammation? The big one is nutrition, not only on the food sensitivity side, but just you're removing these generally known to be inflammatory foods, right? Processed sugar. I mean, our body needs sugar to survive, but it's a very small amount of sugar. So do not worry if you're getting enough sugar. I would basically guarantee my life that you are getting enough sugar and more than likely too much sugar. So processed sugar, let's get that out. Seed oils, allergens, right? They have an issue with, just remove all of those inflammatory foods. And it's not only about removing, but really, I would say the bigger thing is focus on what you can bring in instead, right? I was talking with a gentleman not too long ago about nutrition and supplements and how he's made such a huge impact in people's health. And he goes, I just try to keep it simple. Fill in as many nutrients as you can, and then make sure that the person's able to get rid of all of the waste, right? So load up as much nutrition as you can, nutrients, nutrient density, fiber, and make sure that your body is able to then eliminate all the waste out, meaning you're not constipated, right? So aside from removing inflammatory foods, add in anti-inflammatory foods. Foods that have omega-3, turmeric, leafy greens, berries. Berries have great antioxidants in them. Those things can help a lot. Fermented foods, all helpful. Movement, regular exercise. This is a great way to help with blood sugar, cortisol regulation, mood, mental clarity. I can't think of a downside to exercise, right? Of course, I guess if you get hurt, that is it. But once again, that's in your control, right? So regular exercise, stress management, meditation, breathing practices, time in nature, right? Grounding. I mean, as silly as that may sound, just take your shoes, socks off, walk around your yard, right? If you have a dog, look out for those landmines. You know what I'm talking about. But other than that, yeah, just take your shoes off, walk around a little bit, get some fresh air. It's so helpful. And once again, zero cost. Sleep. This is going to greatly help you with your inflammation. 7 to 9 hours. Men need less sleep than women, right? If you're a woman watching this, get more sleep. You don't need to be, thought of in this crazy hustle bustle, ambition idea, right? Just make sure you're getting more sleep. Your body physically needs more sleep than a man's body does, right? But regardless of man, woman, just get enough sleep, 7 to 9 hours, and have that consistent schedule, right? You go to bed at a certain time, you wake up at a certain time. Just keep that flow going. So when you are looking in the tracking overall, you're saying, okay, I'm regularly going to bed at this time. I'm regularly waking up at this time. Dark, cool room, that will greatly help you with your sleep. That's probably one of the easiest hacks you can do is just, tinfoil your windows if you feel so bold to do, but it'll definitely help you with the cheapest way to black out your room. And then environmental detox, right? So clean water. If you don't have a water purifier, I highly recommend it. If you have the ability to have a whole house filtration, that would be phenomenal because then you don't have to worry about getting all those cartridges for the sink, but instead you'll know that all the water you brush your teeth with, the water you shower in, bathe in, etc., cook in, everything you'll know is purified. So whole house filtration is phenomenal, but I'm not going to pretend it's not expensive. Definitely there's a cost to it, but do the best that you can. As clean of water as you can. Air filtration, if nothing else. So aside from your AC unit in your home and changing those air filters, your AC unit filters, if you can, get a proper air filter, at least for your bedroom, so that while you're in there for those how long? 7 to 9 hours, you have proper air filtration going on. So as you're sleeping, breathing that, you're breathing, the best air that you can instead of having some like pollen or other allergen or environmental toxin that could be bothering you, right? So if you happen to live by a busy street, then what you could at least do in your room with your door closed is have that air purifier going to clean that air up so that at least during that period of time, you're doing better. And minimize your plastics and chemicals, right? So if you're cooking with what's it called, a nonstick dish or like a Teflon cooking pan, ideally move away from that, get more towards like a ceramic or a stainless steel pan or glass. Certain cookware can help a lot, and then plastics too. So I get a lot of pre-made meals that I have at lunch. They come in plastic. I'm not a fan of that. I wish they didn't, but at least when I go to heat it up, I take it out of the plastic. I heat it on a ceramic plate so that I'm not, warming up that plastic, getting those, chemicals leached into my food. So, I'm doing the best I can. Am I doing everything perfect? No, but sometimes we have to let go of perfection to begin progress. Next, I mentioned it before, but I just want to touch back on it, are the food sensitivities. So this is not going to be an obvious allergy. It's not like you are going to eat a peanut and immediately swell up. Or I mentioned before in the movie Hitch with Will Smith, he's on a date, he's making sushi, his face blows up, right? That's an immediate allergy. I only wish that food sensitivities were like that, and even processed food, because then you'd eat it, instantly have an issue and be like, I definitely need to stay away from this. But unfortunately, it's not like that. It'll be delayed. It takes, I believe, if I remember correctly, I think it's 72 hours from taking food in, chewing it, to then, completely digesting, assimilating, and eliminating it, right? So that's a long period of time that symptoms could come up, because it's when you are digesting the food, like once it kind of hits your stomach and whatnot, that you'll start getting those delayed reactions. That's where your leaky gut, where your epithelial cells in your lining of your intestine will go from being super tight to having some gaps, and then that's where inflammation is starting to occur in your body. Now you're starting to have certain symptoms showing up, because once again, your body is using its language, symptoms, to tell you something's wrong, right? So you want to figure out what those foods are. Some of the common ones, because I want to give you something to like move towards, right? Something to help you out. Some of the most common hidden food triggers are going to be dairy, gluten, eggs, and soy. So those, if you just start avoiding those 4, it could potentially help you a lot. I know eggs can be a tough one, but yeah, dairy and gluten, that could be huge. So just give that a shot, right? Don't worry about if this is forever, just 1 week, right? The next time you get groceries, avoid dairy, avoid gluten, just see how you feel. If you want to figure out what your precise foods are, please reach out to us at Immuno Laboratories. The other thing that can be triggering a lot with food sensitivities is chronic exposure. So if you are always eating kind of the same foods and you're always feeling this chronic symptom coming up, that's where that chronic exposure is coming from. Meaning, I'm always having eggs in the morning, and in the afternoon or the next day, I'm always having, this headache. Like I eat eggs at 6 a.m. I have this headache at, 4 p.m., right? And you start realizing that there's this, relationship. Sometimes it's harder to, correlate those two. So that's where we can help with the testing. But if you just are noticing that you regularly have certain symptoms, my belief is that it will strongly be related to the food that you eat. And even if it isn't related to the food that you eat, that would be the first thing to eliminate, right? It's the first thing to check off the box of going, okay, it's not this, let me start doing this. Or here's the things that I found in the food, I've made those improvements, I'm still having a certain issue, let me explore what that is, right? So at least you're no longer fueling this unnecessary inflammation, because everything else you do, once you've eliminated, that large percentage of inflammation, will be so much more effective, especially as you're working with your physician on other treatments. So, kind of in closing, there's good inflammation. That's the inflammation that you have the most control over, right? You are creating that inflammation through exercise, through, going into heat exposure. And then there is the bad inflammation, stuff that you have kind of less control over, right? The environmental toxins, maybe the mental stress, right? Stuff that you can still influence, but it's not stuff that you are doing as consciously, right? And even though the food you are doing, somewhat consciously, you're kind of, if you don't know it's inflammatory, then you kind of don't know what you're doing, right? So that's the good versus bad. We talked about how you can detect these hidden triggers. Start thinking about like, hey, when am I feeling good? When am I feeling bad? Remove those inflammatory foods I mentioned. Rewind the video if you want to see those listed, and start to build in those anti-inflammatory daily habits, right? Things that are going to set you on the right course, because there's all kinds of stuff going on that's inflaming us, right? It's not about being in this, perfect bubble, but it's just how can we make sure that the life that we're living is giving us the best chance of having lower inflammation. So thank you all so much for sticking with me on this and learning about inflammation, how it's silently aging you. Please take a moment, subscribe, write a comment. Give me some feedback. Did you like this? Did you not like this? Did I completely miss something that you feel is critical for how your inflammation began or how you resolved your inflammation? Let me know, right? I want to know. I want the feedback. Like, subscribe, share, please share. Share is probably one of the most important things because that means not only are you educated, but now you're becoming the person to help out someone else, right? Let's pay it forward. Let's keep it moving. This is how we make a change. All right. Thank you all so much.